again with another chapter. Yeah, so just give me one moment here and we'll get started. For those of you who are just tuning in, um, I'm almost done doing readings of one of my dad's manuscripts. So, um, if you're just tuning in, you should probably go back now and look at old rebroadcasts. You'll be able to start from the beginning and work your way up till tonight. And if you like that, then there's also another story that I've already finished reading, and that was a little while earlier. So, without further ado, I present you chapter 25. Guelsar and his party landed some distance away from the camp and walked in, with the table folded up and stored in Pemberlin's pack. Best be careful about it, the magician had said. No saying what some anxious person with a crossbow might do on seeing a flying table come floating down into the midst of the camp. The sentries had been warned to expect the Baron and his party, but despite any and all warnings, no common soldier expected the Baron and his party to come in dusty and afoot like a band of wandering players. As they approached the sentry post, a young man stood forth, spear in hand. "Halt, you folk! Who be you and what you be doing here?" Guelsar stepped up, holding his left hand. "I'm your Baron, lad, and these people are with me." Even the youngest and rawest of the levied troops knew about his lord's disability, and further, his stories abounded about his Lafetta bodyguard, and the gnome he had gotten from somewhere. The young man looked at Guelsar's arm, his expression clearly saying that anyone could have a missing hand. But then Mulgathup stepped up beside the Baron, and the sentry's eyes widened. At the sight of Edic Da in the background, brought apologies tumbling out of his mouth. "Beg pardon, Lord. I didn't be knowing you at first. I be that sorry, Lord." Mulgathup cut him off. "You'd be a serious bad for sentry if you not question everyone who come up. Now, call your under-captain to take us into camp." "Yes, Lord. Right quick, Lord." He put his fingers to his mouth and whistled, a brief two-note blast. The under-captain, a stocky, grizzled man, was well aware of who was who and recognized the party at once. "Welcome, my Lord Baron. Take us to Marshal Forraith. There are things to be done immediately." "Yes, Lord." Forraith was relieved to see them come in, but despite that his mood was dour. As he led them back to his tent, Forraith said, "Well, you brought the lad back safe and sound then?" "Safe, yes, but not entirely sound. It seems Wardick was in the habit of questioning him about our capabilities and then beating him when he wouldn't answer." Forraith scowled. "There do be folk like that, don't there?" "There are, for certain. The first thing we must do is send off a fast messenger to Brynjan, telling her that Jadal is rescued. Now tell me, Forraith, what is our situation? The camp looked a little larger than I dared hope." The Marshal shot him a dour look. "Your hopes must have been fair dismal then, my Lord Baron. We have roughly a third what we might have hoped for, even allowing for the difficulties due to the rebellion. Some of the knights holders are still not totally convinced that they must answer your summons with full force. Such a lot of moaning and groaning excuses I've seldom heard before, even when I was training recruits." "And what of Wardick's forces?" "Well, Lord, over across the old course of Flingkettle Brook from us, he's got a force about equal to ours. I hear tell they're waiting for Wardick himself to come with some more troops before they make a move against us. As for us, we've been waiting for you. So, Lord, what orders? Do we withdraw into Grandel, pulling Wardick along with us, and attack him while he's deep into our territory?" "I don't think so. I have a notion. No, not anything so grand as a plan just yet, but let me think on it and take some advice, and I'll tell you a little later." "Advice?" Guelsar smiled at the Marshal's expression. "No, Forraith. I need some advice you can't supply. but I will talk to you before I make a decision. Do we have any notion of what size of force Warwick will be bringing when he comes? Only guesses, my lord. We do have some idea of the numbers he has available. He'll not be likely to be able to bring the whole of that, though. His knight holders will be no less self-willed than ours. Forth smiled grimly. If he comes with more than 200 horse and foot together, I would be surprised. He paused. Mind you, even that number would give him an advantage over us. So we make our move before they join. My lord, the force across from us cannot be easily disposed of. We might defeat them, only to find that Baron Warwick and his 175 odd fresh troops are too much for us. Gwalstar nodded. Quite true. Well, let me do a little more musing and we'll see what we will see. Master Pemberlin, from what distance would your many-legged friends be able to warn us of Baron Warwick's approach? The magician put a thoughtful finger to his chin. Perhaps as much as a day and a half, my lord Baron. And how much time would you need to put them into action? Perhaps an hour and a half, my lord. Gwalstar nodded. Put them into action, then. This is your notion, my lord Baron? It would destroy us all. Ah, but think of the advantage if it succeeds. It'd be madness, lord. Divide your forces in the face of an enemy already stronger than yourself, with reinforcements coming? Ah, but if we succeed, the reinforcements will not come. Indeed, the major clash we fear will never happen. And if we fail, Grand Old Barony may well be ruined. Come, Forth, it's not as though we were rushing off wildly without thought. We will have full knowledge of Warwick's movements. Through Pemberlin's magic? You had no concern about using Pemberlin's magic at Gwillis Hole our first time here, nor about using it to find our way into the Lesmore. Nor were you risking everything you had either of those times. Gwalstar grinned. I saved that risk myself. Forth snorted in his disgust. And in a moment or two, you'll be standing up to be looking down your nose at me and remind me that you are the Baron and you'll give the orders. Suppose we be going on from there and seeing what might be done to make the risk as little as possible. I'll want 100 men, all mounted. This is more than in the nature of a raid than an invasion. 100 horse! Forrest's dialect was thoroughly overcome by his emotion. You be knowing what I have left with, and how if some clever wight be over yon taking note of the lack of bodies here, you withdraw, pepper him with arrows, and make life miserable for him. You've already blocked out most of the easy approaches to the camp one way or another. Put some archers in there to make the enemy suffer as they push their way through, and then withdraw, keeping your horse for a rear guard. But I'm telling you all sorts of things you've known for years, more years than I've been alive. Look for it. We have a chance to win this fight without suffering losses, which, on top of what we've lost in the rebellion, might well cripple us for years. At least send somebody else, my Lord Baron. Stay here, so if the worst happens, you can still lead the barony. Gwalstar shook his head. My plan for it, and the party that rides out will be at the greatest risk. I think I ought to be with them to show that I have the confidence in the plan. Forth scowled. Father's boots and belt buckle. Well, if it ends up with you being slaughtered out yon, don't be crying that I didn't warn you. Gwalstar grinned his boyish grin. No, I won't do that. Now I have a lot of preparations. Master Pemberlin, will you accompany me on this journey? It's not a thing I could command you to do, you understand. To have you coming with us unwillingly could conceivably be disastrous, though it would be difficult to manage without you. As I understand it, my Lord Baron, you'll be moving quickly. You know that I am no expert horseman. Will you be willing to suffer any delays I might cause you? We'll suffer what we must, Master Pemberlin, so long as you'll come with us and give us your help when needed. Tostig, this is a dangerous enterprise. You needn't think it necessary to come along. All life be a dangerous enterprise, Lord. A man that don't be coming through it alive. Best I be tagging along with you. You be one of the few here that be forgetting I were a bandit. Be you dead, there be no you start to thinking my neck would look better for a bit of hemp? Gwalsar grinned. I won't say that I wouldn't be glad to have you along. Are you sure you won't want better armor? Lord, I were used to fighting in a bit of battered chain. Now I've used to wearing this here brigandine. Trying something new now would mean going into a fight wearing something I ain't used to. After we get back, we might be getting me out into one of those suits, but not just yet. All right then, we'll be leaving a bit after dark this evening. I wish you'd let me come with you, my Lord Baron. Jadal, you're barely fit to walk, let alone ride the kind of ride we'll be making. Don't worry, you'll get enough fighting to suit you in the years to come. The boy was looking down at the ground. Yes, my lord, he mumbled. Then he looked up. But I don't like it. Gwalsar smiled. Ah, well, if that's all, I'm sure you'll recover. Lysander greeted Gwalsar with a broad smile as the Baron entered the tent where the leaders waited to hear the plan of the expedition. So far, my lord, I have at least 3 different rumors that might be true. This excludes such tales as having your magician fly the lot of us over to take Warwick Castle from within. Gwalsar marveled at the notion that, though only 6 of them actually knew about the flight to rescue Jadal, it had become part of the camp rumor already, albeit in a garbled form. No, Lysan, we won't be flying, though we'll be riding fast enough to make up for that. He looked around. Are we all here? Good. We hope to resolve the matter between ourselves and Warwick with one single stroke. We will be guided to our goal by Master Pemberlin the magician. Those of you who have misgivings about trusting a magician so much, be aware that I have given him great trust in the past, and he has always rewarded the trust. We will be attacking Warwick and the force he is bringing with him. Our intent is not so much to destroy that company as to take Warwick himself alive. We will ransom him back, and a part of that ransom will be peace between us. A serious-looking knight, Ronaldar Hallinan, spoke up. My Lord Baron, are we going to intercept Warwick somewhere within his barony? My Lord Baron, it sounds as fanciful as dropping us all within the walls of Warwick Castle. I know it sounds fanciful to our Hallinan, but remember, Pemberlin was able to direct us to the exact cell in Warwick Castle where Jadal was being held. It should be no more difficult to direct us to Warwick's camp in the wild. But Warwick will be moving every day, Lord. True. That is why Pemberlin will be coming along with us. I do not like this business of traveling here and there across the land at the behest of some wizard. I suggest that you look on it as traveling here and there across the land at the behest of your baron. That might make the matter a little more palatable. The young knight subsided, perhaps not satisfied, but without further argument. Halith Dar Kothar, an older veteran, asked, My Lord Baron, how many men is Warwick likely to have with him? We estimate his force at about 175 in all. And are we planning to ambush this force, my Lord Baron, in unfamiliar territory? Gwalsar shook his head. No, my plan is for a night attack. We ride straight in, get the Baron sleeping, tie him on a horse, and ride away. The worst of the fighting is likely to be a running fight over the following day or so, getting away. But we will greatly outnumber the portion of Warwick's forces who are mounted, so that will not be too serious in the end. If we turn and face them after the foot have been left behind, we can likely get off enough to drive them off or destroy them in one short engagement. Ronald Hallinan spoke up again. Riding and raiding like a pack of brigands, my Lord Baron? If we fight a straight battle against the Warwick men presently opposing us, it will be a close thing. If we fight him after he's brought his reinforcements, it will be even more touchy. If we succeed on our bandit raid, we may well put an end to the thing without further fighting. Furthermore, the barony can scarcely afford a pitched battle. With the losses due to the rebellion, we will have hungry times already this year, and there will be many widows and children out tilling the fields their husbands and fathers ought to have worked. To suffer another pitched battle could be disastrous. But honor, Dar Hallinan, if honor is a field of corpses and children lying in cottages too weak from hunger to even cry, why then, I spit on honor. Perhaps if you are so extremely concerned with honor, you might ride and offer your service to the most honorable Baron of Warwick, whose honor allows him to kidnap boys and beat them in some supposed attempt to get information from them. So tell me, do you serve this barony or our enemies? Will you ride with me or with our foes? He realized that he was being harsh with the young man, even realized the harshness might rebound on him, but there was no time for convincing opposition by calm rationality. He looked around. Any other objections? Good. We are leaving in a few moments, hopefully to prevent Warwick's men from noticing our going. We will be circling around them, beyond the reach of scouts and foraging parties. Because of that circuitous route, we will likely be making our attack on Warwick when he is a day or less away from here. Following that attack, we must follow a more direct route back, fighting only if we must. We will be taking our own food and water, since we will not have time to spend foraging. He paused and looked around at them. So then, make ready quickly, gentlemen. The sooner we are out of here, the better. Pemberlin had chosen a likely route for them to travel, and Malguthop had scouted it. By moonlight and starlight, the contingent picked their way around. Pemberlin was with them, and was watching through his many-legged minions, but he warned Gwalsor, this might be the night when a foraging party happens to come this far, and the traces of 100 horses would be hard for them to miss. Yes, that's true, of course. Those traces will still be visible for the next few days, and a foraging party could discover our passing and set pursuit on us. Pemberlin nodded. It then hangs on what Warwick's officers guess as to our intentions. If they send a rider straight to Warwick, we might ride into a force ready and waiting for us. Gwalsor grinned. A magician and a tactician both? But we have an advantage over them still. What advantage is that? Why, yourself, of course. You can tell us how Warwick's camp is set up, and we can guess from that what Warwick might or might not know. Then we deal with the matters accordingly. I shall endeavor to perform to your satisfaction, my lord. Gwalsor grinned. Why so timid now, Master Magician? I had heard that you were the best magician in the barony. Pemberlin straightened a bit. And so I am. Your pardon, Lord Baron. Only a touch of nerves. 3 nights later, their leaders were crouched around a low fire as Pemberlin described for them the layout of the camp. Warwick's retired to his tent and is sleeping. In an hour or less, the bulk of his troops will also be asleep, save for the sentries. His tent is here, in the middle. There is no straight path to it from any point on the edge of the camp. My Lord Baron Gwalsor will speak to you. Thank you, Pemberlin. Lisanne, I want you and 25 men on the far side of the camp. When you are ready, sound a trumpet and ride up, feinting an attack there. Maintain your feint for long enough to get a fair number of their troops facing you and in arms. At the same moment, I and 50 more will ride in, as quickly as we can, to Warwick's tent, snatch him up, and ride back out. When we are out of the camp, we will sound a whistle. There will be too many trumpets blowing for you to distinguish one more. You will then withdraw and meet our main force by morning. If we run into difficulty, we will sound 2 blasts on the whistle. Our reserve force will then come in, quick as possible, cut your way to wherever we are, and help us cut our way out. Questions? There were none. The waiting seemed interminable, and Gwalsor was reminded of the delay as they had waited for the return of the archers scouting the trail in front of Grandel Castle. They would know by the clash of arms if Lisanne and his band had been discovered. But what if he had lost his way? Malguthop, in his usual position next to Gwalsor, spoke quietly. Be easy, Lord. You won't hurry them through fussing. But I thought fussing was one of the requirements of good leadership. A white grin flashed in the night. If so, you're a very good leader. I do that part of it well, don't I? better than most I know. Now you're a master at other things, like waiting patiently, and a horn sounded across the camp. Gwalser turned to his detachment. Now we move! They had a small segment of time in which to begin their rush toward Wardick's tent. A demonstration at night on one side of the camp would have troops moving there, but as soon as an officer of some intelligence was aware, there would be troops moving to all parts of the perimeter, in case the demonstration was intended as a distraction. Gwalser and his men must get as far as they could, therefore, before the resistance began. They rode down the first sentries before they could do much but shout. At a run, the horsemen went along the trail Pemberland had marked out, following the landmarks in the moonlight and the light of the dying cook fires, not stopping to fight, only striking, parrying, and hurrying on. In a larger camp, they might have had more difficulty, but with a force of less than 200 all told, Wardick's camp was not a great sprawling affair. In moments, they had reached the Baron's tent. They engaged the guards, those on duty and the ones scrambling out of sleep at the noise and commotion, and slew them or knocked them aside. Gwalser himself leapt off his horse to slash through the side of Wardick's tent and step in. Baron Wardick, with the help of his page, was scrambling into armor. He grabbed at his sword, but Gwalser stepped forward and knocked it away. He pushed the page aside and called to his men. Bind him and set him on a horse. Loksoya! Malgathup's warning turned him back in time to see the page coming at him savagely, a dagger in hand. Gwalser warded off the dagger and managed to change the killing stroke of the sword into a blow with the flat which laid the boy on the floor of the tent. He had a bare instant to wonder that even one such as Wardick could inspire fierce loyalty in a page. But there was not a lot of time for thinking. Gwalser thrust the Baron, still snarling through the scarf tied around his mouth, into the hands of the people who would be escorting him. Remember, the whole point of this is to bring him out of here. Your main task is to prevent him from being rescued. If it seems certain you will not be able to keep him prisoner, then kill him. It's a poor second to our main plan, but at least it will grant us a small respite while his heir decides what to do. Outside the Baron's tent, there were a few tense moments while the Baron refused to mount the horse they had for him. You can either mount and ride like a man, or we lash you over his back like a sack of meal being brought back from the miller. It makes no difference to me. Gwalser looked Baron Wardick in the eyes, and the Baron mounted. His feet were tied together under the horse, and off they went. Resistance was a little stronger going out than coming in, but Wardick's men were still confused. Many were rushing about, trying to find a leader to tell them what to do. At the edge of the camp, Gwalser's party clashed briefly with a party of 6 horsemen, with a mixed mob of some 15 archers and pikemen. Gwalser engaged a big, rough-looking knight, traded blows with him twice, and was past, leaving him for whoever was coming next. A pike threatened his horse, but he slapped it aside with his sword, and struck down the man wielding it. Another infantryman, armed with a sword, danced back out of range of his first blow, danced back in for a blow that rang on Gwalser's shield, then jumped back again, and Gwalser was past. He rode on a few steps, turned his horse to watch while the others came out, then rode in as a rear guard to discourage the foe from following. Malgathup cut him off part way. Loksoya! You know business fight, rear guard, young fool. Take the prisoner and go. For a bare instant, Gwalser was moved to argue, but he knew that the Levetta was right. Nodding, he turned away, leading his party off into the night. And that is the end of that chapter. So, join me tomorrow night for the final chapter, which I have a feeling is going to be very action-packed based on what happens here and what has to happen by the end of the story, depending on what happens at the end of the story. So I will talk to you tomorrow night. So see you later for chapter 26.